Hello again. In this video, I'm going to look into what I call the mistruths that underpin corruption and set about trying to unravel them and show you what in many ways a sort of twisted and depraved world that we find ourselves in. And I'll begin with our own case. And we've been stepping up our research into all this leg of coordinated coercion, and in particular, if we focus on our daughter, when she was sort of removed from her foster placement and taken to a new placement, possibly temporary in Durham, and the terror that must have brought upon her. This actually relates to a meeting between a younger daughter and older daughter that happened around her birthday, younger daughter's birthday. Remember, because we tried to remind a younger daughter of her Polish heritage, which has been erased as part of an organised programme of cultural genocide by South Tyneside Council, who have not even responded to legitimate inquiries by the Polish embassy. And she wasn't, for us standing up for her heritage, younger daughter, they emotionally blackmailed us by punishing our younger daughter by not allowing us to provide her with a birthday present in a dignified way, such as the depravity of South Tyneside Council and this trading model that's nationwide, where children are being traded with private equity-owned institutions. But back to this meeting between older and younger daughter, which we've warned against, because in a previous meeting, younger daughter had with older daughter. Older daughter brought a boy with her who had been unvetted, left alone with her in a room, and younger daughter was quite distressed because the nature of the conversation between older daughter and the boy, which was an act of gross negligence. But as a result of this meeting, older daughter explained in her words why she left her placement and abandoned her. And younger daughter went to a placement, and she clearly was distressed. That resulted in her being removed. This was now, what I will say is we did visit the foster placement at the weekend. We had a good-natured brief discussion with them. There was no animosity at all from either side. And I don't know whether these allegations, complaints that older daughter made about former foster carer were true. Clearly, my wife and I, have been victims, as of many other people and institutions, of allegations by our older daughter. There's a very disturbing pattern, which I'll come to. Going back to when these were made, South Tyneside Council tried to cover it because they hid it from younger daughter and another girl who I don't want to disturb, that was in the placement at the time. And I will say that my grief with this wicked system is not with foster carers, that they're employed by privately owned organisations, but they're trying to do a job. That it's not them. The majority of them are trying to do a job. It's the wickedness of the system that's the issue. So this complaint was covered up by South Tyneside Council, and older daughter had tried to engineer a new placement. She complained about a previous school, comments such as homophobic. They were homophobic, according to social worker Deirdre Ryan, and to recorded calls. I don't actually believe those allegations. I have many issues with the school regarding safeguarding, but I don't believe they were homophobic. And she'd got herself to another school and worked on a girl there to try to persuade the mother of the girl to let her go and live there. That took some time to set up, and older daughter complained about social worker Deirdre Ryan, and it was causing quite a bit of concern, and South Tyneside Council were very keen to cover this up. And actually Lewis Anderson, who was the independent reviewing officer who subjected my wife to quite significant bullying and degrading treatment on calls when she's tried to stand up for our daughter's Polish heritage. But he's not alone in that. Deirdre Ryan has too, and so have others as well. He tried to he actually told older daughter that Ryan's getting sacked, you don't have to worry about that. And she actually told that to me. She called me in an unsolicited way, and after she'd met her mother for a meal after in the evening, just ahead of older daughter's birthday, and she actually repeated that to both of us. And she called me afterwards and made a number of threats towards me, and in the manner of this coordinated coercion. But amongst other things, she said, "Yeah, Deirdre Ryan's getting sacked," and and so on and so forth. And what Anderson had been sent to do is to placate her and say, "Look, you'll be going to university soon. You get more access to more money, and so on and so forth, and you have more independence." So they try to cover it that way, which raises some very serious issues, because if they believed the complaints stroke allegations were true, why was younger daughter able to stay in the placement for so long until these were repeated and explained that these complaints that have been covered up were told from older daughter to younger daughter? If they believed them, why was she allowed to stay in a placement for so long? If they didn't believe them and they thought they were disingenuous, so we say, then that raises other issues. And the research we've done suggests that Side Tyneside Council for some time have known that there's an issue with our older daughter in terms of making complaints and allegations. As I say, she's complained about a social worker, she's complained about previous schools, she's complained about children, peers, she's complained about a foster placement. There's a whole manner of these patterns, and it actually happened during the time with us, because she actually put me in a very difficult position with a previous school, which wasn't a bad school, because she was complaining about being bullied by a girl, and we reported the school and we asked them to deal with it, and they said they were dealing with it but couldn't really find anything. But I gave older daughter benefit of the doubt, and she kept coming back to me and saying they're not doing anything, it's still happening. And like any parent, I got quite frustrated and said, "Look, I want you to deal with it, but if you don't, I'll have to look into it myself." And that got twisted with CPONs. But anyway, what actually happened is quite a few months afterwards, older daughter was invited to the birthday party of this girl, and I actually took her to the birthday party. It was held at a leisure centre. They were having like a surf party, and I saw the girl and I saw her family, and they actually looked decent people. The girl didn't suggest to me that she had any particularly bad elements to her character, albeit a brief meeting. And I remember coming back and saying to my wife, I'm not so sure we haven't been set up here. I haven't been set up here because I don't think the girl didn't look completely different in the way she was described, and the way she behaved was very different. And there is this pattern where she sadly appears to be an enjoyment of pitching people against each other. And I would guess a similar thing may have happened in this meeting between older and younger daughter, where she sent her away with information that she knew was going to cause trouble. Whether that's true, or whether the complaint or information is true or not, I cannot say. And I'm not making the allegation, but there's a disturbing pattern here. And this has been reported to Side Tyneside Council quite a few times, where both my wife and I have said to her, there's a very disturbing pattern here, and somebody needs to assess her and talk to her about this, because it's going to lead to damage to the lives of people, potentially ruinous, and will also eventually lead herself into a very, very bad situation. And it's a trend that needs to be stopped. But there's simply no incentive for them to do this, because it's about a trade. Once the deal is done, all these terrible things that happen within social services are allowed by judges who don't do their job properly. And I've shown you, and I'll continue to take you through on the case channel, how evidence knowingly was falsified, unsigned statements, unsigned letters to judges that were clearly falsified, that anybody with any due diligence could have seen, but Rachel Hudson signed it off knowingly, accepted as a key body of evidence an unsigned statement. And I think that they knew all along that older daughter was not to be relied upon in accounts she gave of people and situations, and they covered it up. Because it's about this trade. You take children, emotionally sterilize them, radicalize them against their parents, turn them into cash generative financial assets to be traded with private equity organizations. Post-trade, they don't care. It merely becomes a night watchman role, just ensuring those cash flows from the third estate into private pockets. And that's really what it is. And raid gangs will show this. It'll be exactly the same. I can tell by the language that Rupert Lowe and his team are using is once the deal is done, and so no matter whether there were parents approaching local authorities saying our daughters are at risk of being systematically abused here, they simply didn't do anything because it's about maintaining the trade. You'd have to break the trade. These deals are done on a basis that they can't be broken. They try to stitch them up through often falsified and grossly exaggerated evidence, so they cannot be unwound. It's a deal. Long-term, unbroken, government-backed, cash-generative assets. That is what it's about. And it's the same here. And the process needs you to believe there's finality to it. The data deity. You must have heard me say about that on previous videos. Judge says, officials say, professionals say. How often do we hear this in our life? There is no finality of anything. Anything is up to scrutiny. Anything is up for investigation. There is no data deity. There is no data God. Judges are not gods. They are there to be respected when they behave in a manner that's befitting of their office. And accepting unsigned, falsified data, falsified statements, unsigned, falsified letters, statements that have clearly been manipulated, is not befitting of a judge. And South Tyneside Council and Rachel Hudson already should be under very serious investigation. But look at what's underpinned this as well. Let's look at the coordinated coercion that I've received. I challenged the FCA because their narrative they were putting out of a wealth debt was simply not realistic. They were trying to mislead the public. They were trying to hide behind prejudice, to hide catastrophic failures. They were elevating the importance of their own reputation above the welfare of the victims in the scandal. This model here, exposing Rachel Hudson, exposing South Tyneside Council, and our intention to broaden this out and show how this is a corrupt business model that's leading to catastrophic outcomes where families are being destroyed, not repaired, to feed the greed of private equity and legal professionals. Rupert Lowe actually does say some things that make a lot of sense. I can't agree with him on everything. I believe that some of his narrative could potentially lead to bad outcomes, so I'm wary of that. I'm not trying to say he has bad intentions, but I'm just wary of certain things. But some things he says make a lot of sense in terms of a parasitic legal trade, legal profession that saps money out of the public. You see it in social services, this child trading model, and you very much see it in immigration and the abuse of the asylum system. It's this parasitic class of legal professionals that are there. And, weaponizing Northumbria police against me, searching my house for 2 hours for a time machine. They knew when they entered this house. They tried to accuse me and said they were conducting research for spray paint. They lied to my wife and misled my wife when they were terrorising her. They tried to concoct this narrative that they were searching for spray paint, and they knew before they entered this property it wasn't true. We can't even find any evidence that these spray paint incidents were ever investigated at the time. They accused me of reacting to an email 2 months after the alleged incident, hence why they're searching for spray paint, euphemism for time machine. You can see the weaponization of this. They took away my devices, my wife's devices, work devices. They're still holding them, even though they've been caught out lying, even though they've been used as an instrument of coordinated coercion. Their questioning shows that. They won't release the interview. They won't release body cam footage, which would expose it all. I was assaulted in the back of the police car by Adam Lloyd when I started, because I rattled him about questioning and started to get under his skin in terms of what he was doing and the false pretext that was being used. Mistreated in the cells. They won't release that either. So they use instruments of police terror to stop you exposing what is hideous corruption. And it shows you just how degenerate society is becoming. I'll give you another example. If you look at this, there's been a lot of news about this Munich security conference, but if you unravel all the bluster, essentially it amounts to, we have no ideas. Essentially what they're saying is, we've scraped together enough money to try to keep Ukraine in this war, sending Ukrainians to die, brave Ukrainians to die, on a wing and a prayer and a hope that the Russian economy collapses and Russia to somehow withdraw. They have no plan other than that. Let's look at the Navalny situation. Firstly, we have to recognise that Navalny's death was a tragedy. He should be at home with his family. And I think what happened to Navalny reflects badly on all sides. Now, firstly, what Yvette Cooper is not telling you is Navalny was backed by both UK and US intelligence. And he was effectively designed to be a spearhead for regime change in Russia. Now, in terms of his unfortunate death, all I would say, we haven't seen enough information yet, but I would treat what Yvette Cooper is saying, she's got a terrible record of dishonesty. I would treat what she's saying with this sort of poisonous frog narrative with extreme caution, but we'll wait and see what comes out. Anyway, that's enough for now. Take care. Bye.